Part 1. The Rise of the Aristocratic Houses. Over 10 millennia, humanity evolved from a fractured species confined to a single planet to a sprawling interstellar civilization. Early breakthroughs in space travel, genetic engineering, and artificial intelligence had enabled humanity to colonize thousands of worlds. But as humanity spread across the stars, new challenges arose: harsh environments, limited resources, and inevitable conflict. To survive, humans began to diverge culturally, politically, and biologically. The Maelstrom Cluster, a dense region of stars with planets rich in resources, became home to humanity's most ambitious experiment in selective evolution. Facing the extreme conditions of their worlds, the settlers organized themselves into aristocratic houses, each dedicated to perfecting specific traits through centuries of controlled breeding, genetic manipulation, and technological augmentation. Over thousands of years, these houses created lineages that dominated their respective worlds. House Veldrin. Known for their physical strength and endurance, their descendants became laborers, warriors, and industrialists who thrived under harsh, gravitational forces. House Kyle. The scientists and strategists of the Maelstrom Cluster, their intellect was unparalleled. They mastered quantum mechanics, genetic manipulation, and advanced computational systems. House Lyra. Masters of empathy and emotional intelligence, their members could sense and manipulate emotions, making them exceptional diplomats and leaders. House Moors. Adaptable and versatile, their genetic codes allowed them to thrive in hostile environments, from the frozen tundras of icy moons to the molten surfaces of volcanic worlds. These houses ruled over their respective planets with near-divine authority, shaping the fates of their people and maintaining a delicate balance of power. Intermarriages and alliances were carefully calculated to strengthen bloodlines, but rivalries between the houses often led to proxy wars and betrayals. Despite these conflicts, the Maelstrom Cluster flourished for millennia, a beacon of humanity's adaptability and ambition. However, the houses' obsession with perfection created an unintended weakness: predictability. Their carefully crafted genetic strategies made them formidable but rigid, with each house optimized for specific conditions. It was this flaw that the Nythol would exploit when they arrived. Part 2. The Nythol Invasion. The Nythol came from beyond the edges of known space, a species unlike anything humanity had encountered. Biomechanical and parasitic in nature, the Nythol thrived on consuming and assimilating the genetic material of other species. Their evolutionary strategy was simple but devastating. They would identify the genetic strengths of their prey, absorb them, and adapt their own biology to counter any resistance. They were both predators and parasites, moving from one civilization to another, leaving destruction in their wake. When the Nythol entered the Maelstrom Cluster, their methods were methodical and horrifying. Using fleets of organic ships, living entities bred for war, they deployed swarms of genetic harvesters to planetary surfaces. These harvesters resembled nightmarish amalgamations of flesh and machinery, capable of extracting DNA from humans with surgical precision. Victims were cocooned, their genetic material harvested while they remained conscious. Those deemed useful were kept alive for continuous extraction, while others were reduced to nutrient paste to feed the Nythol's war machines. The aristocratic houses, for all their genetic advancements, were unprepared for the Nythol's assault. House Veldrin's warriors, though physically powerful, were overwhelmed by the sheer adaptability of the Nythol's bioforms. House Kyle's advanced strategies failed as the Nythol quickly countered their technological innovations. House Lyra's empaths could sense the Nythol's intent, but found their alien minds impervious to manipulation. House Moors, despite their adaptability, could not match the Nythol's speed of evolution. Entire planets fell within weeks. On Thalasis, a water world ruled by House Moors, the Nythol drained the oceans to harvest aquatic life, leaving the planet barren. Erythian Prime, home to House Lyra's greatest empathic academies, was reduced to a genetic farm, its population enslaved in the Nythol's biomechanical vats. Even House Kale's fortress world, Calypsis, known for its impenetrable orbital defenses, succumbed after the Nythol deployed adaptive viral swarms that turned their own AI systems against them. Refugees from the fallen planets flooded into the remaining strongholds of the Maelstrom Cluster. Entire houses were displaced, forming governments in exile on neutral colonies or within the territories of surviving houses. These refugee enclaves became hubs of desperation and innovation as displaced geneticists, engineers, and warriors worked tirelessly to devise ways to fight back. The presence of refugees strained the resources of host planets, often creating friction between the remnants of fallen houses and their reluctant hosts. The psychological toll on the houses was immense. These proud, genetically perfected aristocracies watched helplessly as their millennia-old legacies were harvested and assimilated. Carefully cultivated bloodlines disappeared overnight, and centuries of genetic engineering were turned into weapons against them. The Nythol were not simply enemies, they were existential predators, reducing the house's ambitions to ashes. The Maelstrom Cluster, once a bastion of human achievement, teetered on the edge of collapse. Faced with extinction, the surviving houses convened on Calixis Prime, a neutral world that had yet to fall. The gathering was unprecedented, as ancient rivals set aside their differences to address the greatest threat humanity had ever faced. House Kale's geneticists, known for their experimental brilliance, presented a radical solution to create a new strain of humanity that could fight the Nythol on their terms. The idea was as dangerous as it was bold. The Wildfire project, as it came to be known, would abandon the rigid perfection of the houses and embrace chaos. These new humans would carry volatile mutations, capable of evolving unpredictably and resisting the Nythol's assimilation tactics. It was a gamble that could either save humanity or destroy it entirely. The Council, desperate and out of options, approved the plan. And so, in the shadows of the Nythol invasion, humanity began to forge its most dangerous weapon, the Wildfires. Part 3. The creation of the Wildfires. Desperation drove innovation. With the Maelstrom Cluster on the brink of annihilation, House Kale took the lead in developing the Wildfire project. The concept was as bold as it was dangerous: abandon the rigid perfection of the aristocratic bloodlines and embrace chaos. These new humans would carry volatile mutations, genes engineered to shift and adapt unpredictably, creating abilities that even the Nythol couldn't anticipate or counter. The project was fraught with ethical and logistical challenges. Genetic instability meant that many early test subjects did not survive the process. Their bodies either rejected the rapid mutations or spiraled into uncontrollable deformities. For every success, there were dozens of catastrophic failures, each one a grim reminder of the risks. The surviving Wildfires, however, were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The Wildfires were biological storms. Their skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that shifted with their emotions and environments. Their eyes glowed in kaleidoscopic hues, capable of seeing far beyond the visible spectrum. Their abilities varied wildly. Some could manipulate energy fields, others could alter their physical form, sprouting claws, armor-like scales, or even wings in the heat of battle. Their adaptability was unparalleled, but so was their unpredictability. To manage their volatile nature, each Wildfire was paired with a handler, typically a member of House Lyra. These handlers, gifted with empathy and psychological insight, acted as anchors, ensuring that the Wildfires remained focused on their mission. The bond between Wildfire and handler became a cornerstone of the project's success. With the first squad of Wildfires operational, humanity had a weapon that could strike back against the Nythol. Their chaotic mutations made them immune to the Nythol's assimilation tactics, and their devastating abilities gave humanity a fighting chance. Part 4. Chaos Unleashed. The first deployment of Wildfires took place on Tireless 4, a planet overrun by Nythol genetic harvesters. The mission was deemed a last-ditch effort, with the Wildfires tasked with clearing the way for an evacuation fleet. What followed was nothing short of a spectacle. The Wildfires descended onto the surface, their mutations erupting into unpredictable forms as they engaged the Nythol forces. One wildfire transformed into a towering armored beast, tearing through Nythol harvesters with brute strength. Another emitted electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the Nythol's biomechanical systems, leaving their drones paralyzed. A third wildfire manipulated gravitational fields, crushing enemies under their own weight. The Nythol, for all their adaptability, were unprepared for the sheer chaos of the wildfires. Their logic-driven strategies unraveled in the face of such unpredictability. Within days, the Nythol presence on tireless 4 was eradicated, and the HFY evacuation fleet rescued thousands of stranded civilians. The success of the mission sent shockwaves through the Maelstrom Cluster. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had struck a decisive blow against the Nythol. The wildfires became a symbol of hope, their chaotic power celebrated as a necessary force in an otherwise bleak war. The wildfire campaign expanded rapidly. Squads were deployed across the cluster, retaking planets and crippling Nythol supply lines. Their unpredictability became their greatest weapon, sowing confusion and fear among the Nythol forces. However, their instability remained a constant threat. Some wildfires lost control, their mutations spiraling into destructive outbursts that endangered allies and civilians alike. Despite these risks, the aristocratic houses poured resources into the project, seeing it as humanity's only chance. For survival. Part 5. A New Humanity. The systematic erosion of the Nythol began with precision strikes on their supply lines and genetic harvesting operations. Wildfire squads, supported by the remnants of the aristocratic fleets, targeted key Nythol outposts and hive ships. Using their volatile mutations, the wildfires infiltrated deep into enemy territory, striking at the very heart of the Nythol's infrastructure. The wildfires' unique adaptability allowed them to counter the Nythol's greatest strength, their ability to assimilate genetic material. By introducing unpredictability into the Nythol's genetic systems, the wildfires created chaos within the enemy ranks. One squad deployed a bioengineered virus that corrupted the Nythol's DNA repositories, causing entire swarms of their biomechanical drones to self-destruct. Another squad utilized electromagnetic bursts to disable the Nythol's organic ships, leaving them vulnerable to human fleet bombardments. As the campaign progressed, the Nythol began to show signs of fragmentation. Their hive ships, once tightly coordinated, started to operate independently, their neural connections severed by wildfire sabotage. Genetic data harvested from human populations became increasingly useless as the wildfire's chaotic mutations rendered assimilation attempts ineffective. The final phase of the war, known as the Trident Offensive, was a coordinated assault on the Nythol hive fleet at the edge of the Maelstrom Cluster. Wildfire squads spearheaded the attack, infiltrating the hive ships and unleashing their full destructive potential. Inside the alien vessels, the wildfire's mutations evolved in real time to counter the Nythol's defenses. One squad, led by a wildfire capable of generating plasma, ignited chain reactions that obliterated entire sections of the hive. Another squad deployed genetic disruptors that caused the Nythol's bioforms to mutate uncontrollably, turning on each other in a frenzy of chaos. The decisive blow came when a team of wildfires penetrated the central hive ship, where the Nythol's genetic core was housed. Using a combination of brute force and viral weaponry, they destroyed the core, severing the neural network that connected the Nythol swarm. Without their central command, the remaining Nythol forces collapsed into disarray, their once formidable coordination reduced to scattered and ineffective pockets of resistance. By the end of the Trident Offensive, the Nythol were annihilated. Their hive fleet was reduced to smoldering debris, their genetic repositories destroyed, and their biomechanical systems rendered inoperable. The chaos of the wildfires had not only defeated the Nythol, but had left an indelible scar on their evolutionary memory, ensuring they would never return. However, the remnants of the Nythol hive ships were not entirely destroyed. Recognizing their immense biomechanical potential, House Kale proposed a bold plan to repurpose the disconnected hive drones as a servant class. Using quantum AI systems developed during the war, they reprogrammed the dormant Nythol bioforms, stripping them of their hive consciousness and replacing it with a controllable artificial intelligence. These reconditioned drones, referred to as the Bound Swarm, became a cornerstone of post-war reconstruction. Programmed to obey human directives, they were deployed across the Maelstrom Cluster to rebuild devastated planets, construct new infrastructure, and perform tasks deemed too dangerous for humans. The Bound Swarm proved particularly adept at large-scale planetary repairs, patching fractured ecosystems, rebuilding collapsed cities, and restoring the atmospheres of war-scarred worlds. Beyond reconstruction, the Bound Swarm became instrumental in terraforming new planets. Using their biomechanical adaptability, they accelerated the creation of habitable worlds, enabling humanity to expand into previously inhospitable regions. Their ceaseless labor and efficiency turned barren rocks into lush colonies, helping the Maelstrom Cluster enter an unprecedented age of abundance. This newfound abundance fostered a relative peace among the aristocratic houses. With access to unlimited labor and seemingly endless energy sources harnessed from advanced fusion and solar technologies, the houses found little reason to engage in old rivalries. They formed a loose but prosperous confederation, each house focusing on its strengths while sharing the fruits of their collective achievements. Lavish cities of crystalline spires and floating gardens dotted the cluster, testaments to the synergy of human ingenuity and the Bound Swarm's tireless efforts. Though debates persisted over the ethics of utilizing the Bound Swarm, their contributions were undeniable. As the Wildfires integrated into society and the houses continued to evolve, the Maelstrom Cluster thrived in its new golden age, standing as a symbol of humanity's resilience and capacity to forge prosperity from the chaos of war.